Today you will learn how to make a proper cup of pour-over coffee. The flavor will be balanced, so the cup will not be sour or bitter. And what will surprise you, that you wasted a lot of coffee on recipes. What makes it great? It's not the recipe, it's the framework. You have 3 stages, meaning you pour the water differently in every stage. And it is time-based. So you can memorize it by brewing it once, and then you will be able to make any dose of coffee. Like if you're in the mood to making 10 grams of coffee, you can make it with this method. And then you can make 15 or 20 grams of coffee, or even 30 or even 80 grams of coffee. Yes, it is possible and it is easy. So it is one of the biggest advantages. You can brew any dose of coffee. So you got some great coffee, and you know some stable recipe like 12 grams, but then coffee runs out and you only have 20 grams. Of course, you will not waste 8 grams then. So it is very handy to know how to brew any dose. And most importantly, reliably and predictably. So you will not waste any coffee, ever. Every cup of coffee that you brew will be drinkable. Like recently I had a situation where I needed to brew 46 grams of coffee. Preferably in 2 bunches, because there were a lot of people. It was a competition-level coffee, $200 for a kilogram of green coffee, so that's quite tricky to make. And obviously mistakes are not allowed with such coffee. So you can't just use some coffee for adjusting your recipe. And we need to adjust only the grind size, yes, you don't need to play with the temperature. It was easy. I knew that this coffee was pretty fast, so I need to decrease the grind size and that's it. The rest stays the same. So you feel in the vibe already. You have zero stress when brewing the coffee. And the only thing you will adjust is the intensity of the coffee, so your level of extraction. And you will be like, hold on, isn't it osmotic flow? No, it isn't. It's actually originated from there, but I've improved osmotic flow quite significantly, so it is now hybrid flow. So let's start from the temperature. It's 90 degrees Celsius. And it works for every coffee currently, medium roast, light roast. And it works for every coffee brewer. Though for ceramic brewers, I would sometimes use 91-92 degrees, just to make a cup more complex. But most of the time you will be fine with 90 degrees. Let's talk about why this method is so stable. We are pouring pretty close to the coffee, which first of all makes it work with any coffee grinder, and this makes it more stable. So with other recipes, they don't specifically say how high you need to keep the kettle. Here you just keep it naturally as close to the coffee as you can. In the pouring stage number 2, we have pulses, which are not allowing the coffee to compress. So the coffee particles will stay pretty much separated. While in other recipes, they may compress when the water is out, which will lead to stalling and other brewing defects, like unbalanced flow of water, so that it will find the way and make a channel. And your coffee will be very unbalanced. So here we don't have these defects. That's why the coffee will be balanced. And the only thing we play with is extraction. And third stage is boring, we just making a huge spiral to add the rest of the water. So that's the basics. What about the parameters? We have 1:16 ratio, or any ratio that you want. So usually it's 1:16, but you can use 1:12, 1:10, doesn't matter. But it's better to stick to 1:16 or 6 grams per 100 grams of water, because that way it will be more stable. You will understand it better. So there are 3 stages: bloom, pulses and spiral. In the bloom we just add in the water to wet the coffee. But we don't pour near the filter. We stop in at around 1 centimeter before touching it. Then if you see dry coffee particles near the walls, you just continue to pour at the center, so that the wave of water will cover the coffee. It's important to not add too much water here, because we just making the dome, so that we will not have water over the coffee in the second stage. Stage number 2 is pulses. Here it is a little bit tricky to understand, it's better to just practice. So in this stage you just pumping the dome, so it will go up and down. When we add in the water, it inflates. Then we're waiting for water to drain a little bit and the coffee dome will a little bit collapse. So it'll begin to flatten, and when it's already flat, you add another portion of water. And in the pulses we add in the water in a circle motion. The flow rate here is not super fast but not super slow. It's like 2 to 4 or even 6 grams per second. In general, it's from 30 seconds to 130. But it could be more, because in this stage we extract the most of the coffee, because fresh water goes in. And then the mass of water drops because we're letting it to drain, and we add in a fresh portion of water which will extract coffee more efficiently. Because if water will not flow and you keep pouring the fresh water, it will just dilute it. And here we will extract. And that's why in this stage, pulses, we have extraction phase. Like we've prepared our coffee in the first stage, so that coffee particles are now connected with water. And we created a distance between the particles, so that the water will flow freely. And the third stage is just the spiral, fast spiral. From around 130, or when your coffee almost collapsed, the dome almost collapsed, you add the portion of water in the spiral motion. So we're just washing out the rest of the flavor which we already extracted. And washing out the oils which are sitting at the top layer. And you will be like, hold on, is it really working? Yes, that's that simple. But here are 2 tricks. First of all, we can increase our second stage, pulses, because we have extraction stage here. And if you have a lot of coffee, like 30 plus grams, sometimes water in this phase flows pretty slowly, like you can do 3 pulses only, and that's not enough. Target the pulses to be like 5 or 8, something like this, or sometimes more. So the pulses will save you a lot. Should you proceed making pulses longer, beyond 130, like until 2 minutes, or should you back up and just make a spiral already? So this method allows you to understand the coffee and its behavior and understand your grind size, because here is another trick, the grind size. There is actually 2 tricks about the grind size. You will understand is your grind size too big or too small by just watching on the flow. If in the first stage when we wetting the coffee, the water goes too fast through the coffee, and then in the pulses phase it's also draining too fast, it is obvious sign that the grind size is too big, so you will need to decrease it. Otherwise your coffee will be watery. But that's a great part, because when you see that your coffee is flowing too fast, you can just add less water in the third stage, or just skip the third stage at all, and keep making pulses. Because we need a proper concentration of flavor in the cup. And by adding less water, we will have a higher concentration. So our coffee will be drinkable. But that's a pro tip. And same with the slow flow. If you see that coffee flows too slow, you obviously used too small grind size. And you need to stretch out the pulses phase, make it longer, in order to extract coffee properly, because there is too much resistance for water. And another thing about the grind size, when you changing the dose, the resistance will be different, because we will have a different amount of water pressure. When we add in the water in the second stage, when we're using 10 grams of coffee, the water pressure will be small, because we have a small column of water. But when we're making 30 grams of coffee, it's not obvious, but you will need to make the grind size smaller to create more resistance, because the column of water will be huge and the pressure it creates will be massive. So it will just flow freely through the coffee if you use the grind size which you've used for 15 gram dose. So it goes like this, from around 10 grams to around 18 grams you increasing the grind size. But then, like 25 grams and higher, you will decrease it, so that you will have the grind size for like 10 grams dose, while brewing 30 grams. Now you know how it works. It's all about the pressure. So it's time to try it, the best coffee brewing method in the world. And let me know in the comments what are your thoughts, because it's very interesting to hear. That's it for today. See ya.